How you? Okay, I'll call to order the Parks and Recreation Committee. Turn that over to Amy.
Evening, everyone. The only thing on the agenda for tonight is the Somerville Girls Softball League's lease renewal. The current one did expire. There are a couple of changes for the new contract. We did change it to a license agreement versus a lease agreement. They did change the amount from $600 to $800, and then we eliminated the percentage from the gross sales for concessions that would come back to the town.
Okay, does anybody have any? This is just a renewal of the lease, right?
Yes, sir, with those changes.
It's just not a lease, it's a license.
That's correct.
Do I hear a motion? I move that we approve it.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Y'all have anything else? I hear a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that a motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Amy.
I'm gonna call to order the Planning and Development Committee meeting.
First item on the agenda is petition by Somerville Partners of Georgia LLLP to annex Dorchester County TMS numbers 152-00000014 and 016, located on Dorchester Road and totaling approximately 278.53 acres. Currently zoned CG General Commercial and R4 Multifamily Residential in Dorchester County, and will be zoned PUD, Plan Development District, upon annexation into the town of Somerville's municipal limits. This would be in Council District 5. Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for approval at their meeting on August 16th, 2021.
Anybody have any questions for Ms. Schuler?
I have questions, and I'm sorry I missed the presentation earlier. It was unavoidable. But I would make a motion, we move it forward for first reading, and we can discuss and get those questions answered in between.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second the motion, move it forward to full council.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna be recusing myself on this matter going forward. Motion passes 2-0.
Mr. Chairman, before we leave that item, I'm not on the committee, but this matter is on the agenda for Thursday, as I understand it. And apparently there was a financial study done on the feasibility of whether or not the town would gain or lose money in the long run by doing this annexation. And apparently the Planning Commission had that document at their meeting. I have not seen it. And I would ask the council receive that in advance of the Thursday meeting.
It should have been provided to you. It was included in the information I sent for the Planning and Development Committee meeting.
Okay, well, maybe I just missed it. Was the traffic impact analysis with that as well?
The traffic impact analysis, I think, doesn't have, isn't finalized yet. But I will get that to y'all as soon as it is finalized. And if we have, I'll get the draft to you, actually, if I'll ask AJ for that and get the draft.
Yeah,
to
if
you.
it was sent out, I didn't, I may have overlooked it, but I don't think I got it.
Okay.
Next
Jesse,
item.
I didn't get a dollar figure on that cost to the town until sometime this afternoon. I don't know why, but
I don't know. I included it in the email when I sent it out. It should have had the Excel file when I sent it to the Planning and Development for the Planning and Development Committee. So I'm not sure why I didn't get to y'all, but I apologize for that. But I can certainly forward it to you, but I thought I had sent it to y'all, so.
I did get it, but I got it this afternoon instead of early with the packet. Anyway, it's okay.
Next item on the agenda is petition by Extra Effort Sports LLC to annex Dorchester County TMS number 14400000075, located at 620 Greenway Boulevard, approximately 0.918 acres, currently zoned CG General Commercial in Dorchester County, and will be zoned GB General Business upon annexation into the town of Somerville's municipal limits. This will be in Council District 4. Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for approval at their meeting on August 16th, 2021.
I'll make a motion. We move this to full council for approval.
I'll second.
Any further discussion or questions from Ms. Schuler? If not, all those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
The final item on the agenda is petition by the town of Somerville to annex the North Maple Street right-of-way fronting on tracks 36, 39, 40, 41, 42, 46, 47, 49, 50, 51, 52, 58, 59, 60, 61, 70, and 78. Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for approval at their meeting on August 16th, 2021.
I'll make a motion that we move that forward with the recommendation of approval.
Second.
Any questions or further discussion? If not, all those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. Unanimous. Any
I do not have
further,
anything.
anything else for the committee? Motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll start the Public Works Committee.
Catherine, I'm gonna set my easel up so I can
Okay.
Mayor asked me to help try to explain a couple drainage basins we're working on now. And this is the US 78, I guess, Midtown drainage basin that affected flooding at Mr. Sign property on 78. You can see the outline in red is the perimeter or the area of the basin, about 89 acres. 89 acres of mostly developed property drains through a ditch shown in the blue line to the right, through kind of through the woods, down to the US 78 at the bottom. And then there's two pipelines from Main Street shown depicted in red that flow into that ditch that it also flows. So basically, you've got 89 acres of property. Most of that area was developed back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. There's no detention hardly at all. So it's just nothing managed. There's no stormwater management hardly at all in that entire basin. All that water is trying to get through a 36-inch diameter pipe. Which explains why that's why it's flooding at Mr. Sign's property right now. We did do a flood study. The things we looked at. Like I said, it goes to, all that drain is trying to get to a 36-inch pipe. It doesn't go there timely fashion, which results in flooding of those two buildings. We'll tell you, the only two buildings flood in this whole area at the bottom. We looked at several solutions. One being detention. We consider detention ponds upstream to hold the water, control it before it got to that point. Identify two areas of detention. Get about 5 acres of detention. So one spot was right here. Other spot was block right here. We need about total 7 acres of real estate to get 5 acres of detention. The upper pond here would have displaced about 5 pieces of property we had to acquire, relocate those people, demolish those homes, and fund the construction of a pond. This one down here, same thing, it's empty. You would have to acquire it, fund the construction of a pond without the cost of $5 to $6 million to do that. Also looked at upgrading the conveyance downstream. Put a larger pipe in to allow water to flow and not hold up and flood those properties. It was determined that 2 6x6 box culverts would be required to convey that much water. So to tear 2 6x6 boxes to 1 36-inch pipe is a huge difference. We would need to run those box culverts between 1,000 and 1,500 linear feet, depending on what path we chose to get the Somerville Branch Canal. And by crossing Myers Parkway and possibly crossing 78. That was a tremendous amount of money required to do that. Probably $8 to $10 million work price range to implement that solution. We also studied basin diversion. So if you look up in the top left area of the basin, this area along Main Street, possibly divert some of this water this direction. And that goes into the Azalea Park basin. We all know that this is the basin that runs through downtown, behind your house, Mayor. I know there's problems there. We need to work on this basin before we dump more water on this basin. Further study would need to be required before we implement that solution. That is a possible solution, but if we dump more water, we need to mitigate it at the same time. We don't know the cost of that. The recommended solution in the study was to purchase the 2 properties that are flooding. All the other scenarios would cost much more than what these 2 properties would cost according to our appraisal. What we have done, we did this last month, is we've implemented restrictions on stormwater development in this basin. So anyone who comes in now and wants to develop or redevelop a parcel with commercial property, any property in this area, would have to have almost double detention requirements to hold their water back, double what they're required to under current requirements. So that's been implemented. That's not going to happen overnight. That's decades and decades of redevelopment. It's properties turnover and redevelopment. It's just a way to not degrade the basin more than it's being damaged right now. Kind of what we're dealing with. Any questions?
Well, so I was wondering, isn't there any way we can do it without crossing 78 and divert it from the Wise down across that property proposed to be developed and into the canal?
Well, the problem is, yes, there is a way to do that. That's about 1,000 feet. Again, you look at it, $8 million, around $8 million to do that work. It's across Myers Parkway. There's utilities all over through there. If you go through people's property, acquire easements, maybe demolish buildings. I don't know that yet, but certainly it'd be a big, huge job. And it will cost more than buying those 2 buildings.
It just seems like some of it, a good bit of it could be open too, without going through a tunnel other than under the road.
It's really a funnel, Councilman Jackson. I mean, the grade difference from the basin to the bottom of that ditch is about almost 15 feet. So you're really fucking grade to try to divert it any other way you gotta pipe it. We looked at that, trust me. We looked at everything, the way we could think of to avoid having to purchase property or the solution to purchase property.
Now, Wayne seems to flood worse than the other building. Is that correct?
Yes, his building sits a few inches lower than the building up front. So he floods first, and then the building up, the small office building up front also floods.
What if we bought his building and put it on there?
Like I said, you need 5 acres of pond. He's sitting on less than an acre. He wouldn't really do much.
And both properties together, how much is that?
I'm sorry,
With both properties together, how much acreage is that
rather than an acre, maybe just over an acre.
for both of them? But we own the land right behind it, correct?
We have a right of way, unapproved right of way. on Sixth Street. We don't own property.
And I know you told us before, but what was the approximate cost?
The appraisal for both those buildings came in at just over right at $1 million.
And you've got some of that water coming from the developments over there where Aldi's is,
So, I'm sorry.
Aldi's supermarket. Is there some of that water coming from that area up there where they've got Aldi's and
Yeah, so if you look at the red perimeter line, all that area is the area that's draining down to this.
Right. And since there's so much new development in there, is that exacerbating the problem?
I don't think so. It was already flooding and and that area did require detention, so it is holding its water back. Despite one of the only properties in that area that had detention. Recently developed.
And the other question I've got is, since we're planning the Midtown TIF, is this the problems you're trying to handle here with the flooding, is that going to help that TIF, or the TIF going to be independent of this?
I think the Midtown TIF has money in it to help alleviate the problem. But I think the solution is purchasing that property.
So it's sort of a two-step. You're suggesting that we purchase the properties. If we did, then you'd still say we need to go in there and make the pipes larger, right?
No, ma'am, I don't. I'm not saying that. We purchased the property. The only problem, this whole basin is those 2 properties. We purchased those 2 properties, and we would not have to do any more work. Still need to restrict stormwater development going forward. We still keep those restrictions in place. We would explore diverting water into the other basin in the future. And evaluate that, depends on cost. At this point, purchasing those 2 properties, they're the only properties that are flooding. There is some street flooding on 6th Street. Water's never crossed Highway 78 to my knowledge. Even during 2015, they crossed 78. So 78 is not flooding. Everything downstream is not flooding. I'm not been reported to.
Well, do I have any motions in the committee?
Russ, what kind of motion are you looking for?
I'm not looking for a motion. The purpose of this is to help better understand what's happening here and what the challenges we're facing in the spaces. I wish it was easy as filling a pond in and calling it a day, but this is an unusual circumstance that we looked at every solution we can think of to look at. We keep coming back to find the problem.
When a city has a problem like this, it's going to be very expensive. Is there any help that you can get from like the Corps of Engineers to come in and help us with that?
Well, that I'm aware of, there is some FEMA money But unfortunately, FEMA money has to be used with floodplain. This is not a floodplain.
So do we just want to take this information as information right now? Who's on the committee? Okay, and
Any questions, Mayor?
No, no, I don't have any, Russ. Thank you, though. It's a good presentation. Sounds like we got one Joyce.
Next area we're looking at is the Germantown area, Parkway Drive, Simmons Avenue, Shepard Street, Jesson Lane, that area, Waring Street. Did this study, this area, this basin is about 100-acre basin. And really consisted of two basins, where area to the right goes to Say Park Basin, to the left, but it's not hatched, not shaded, it goes to two farm, both locally out to Somerville Ranch Canal. Over the years, it's been street flooding, Shepard Street, Waring Street, Jesson, Simmons Avenue, yard flooding, and structural flooding at 115 Jesson. That's the property at the corner of Jesson and Simmons Avenue. Basically, all the water in this area comes to one point, Jesson and Simmons. Street here, where you got water. This is Shepard Street, coming down Shepard all the way here, turning up to Jesson, or coming down Simmons this direction, coming down Simmons from this direction. And that's actually coming from gas in this direction, all to this point. That one property floods. What we did, we have several solutions in process now. We've completed construction of a 2.6 acre pond at intersection of Parkway Drive and Shepard Avenue. The pond is in place. The pond is not functioning yet. The pipe to deliver the water to the pond is not in place. The pipe is on order, expected to be delivered next week or so, and we'll get started on installing that pipe. So pond is in place, but it's not functioning yet. If you look at the area that's shaded on this map, about 22 acres, all of that area will be diverted to the new pond. So we've taken off about almost a quarter, 25% of the area going to that point, from that area being diverted to the new detention pond. What we've also done, water that comes down Waring Street, down Simmons, we've diverted it down Peter Street. So all this water that was coming to Simmons has now been diverted down Peter Street and goes out to the canal this way. That has helped the situation a bit, but I think the pond will help it a lot more. The town has done some temporary improvements on Waring Street, completed those last week. That will help the localized flooding on Waring Street. The next phase to this solution, phase 3, I guess you call it, is we're now in the design to design a trunk line from Simmons Avenue, or back from Tallow Street, actually down Waring Street to Simmons, and down up to the outfall by near Carolina Avenue. So that would divert water directly to the outfall and not allow it to go through the area that's flooding now. So the pond in place, diverting 22 acres from that. Peter Street is in place now, diverting a lot of area. Waring Street will hopefully be in place next year, diverting more area away from the area that's flooding. So basically, all we're trying to do is decrease the volume of water that's going to this point from 4 different directions, and keeping the water in the pipes.
So Ross, let me ask you, that's over in my district and I've had a lot of headaches with the flooding over there. And Jesson Street in particular, once that pond, how long is it going to be before the pond and the piping is completed, show that the residents there will get some benefit and see a difference?
Once we get the pipe in hand on the yard, they can get it in about 6 to 7 weeks, depending on what.
Okay, good. I'm sure they'll appreciate that.
So by the end of, hopefully by the end of November, it'll be in place if not sooner.
Russ, the water that's coming down Shepherd Street that I've witnessed, during these floods, that runs down the road, seems to come out of the woods by President Circle 2 or whatever we call that over there for Simmons. And where's that water gonna go?
So the backside of President Circle to Vice President Circle, some of the rear yard stuff will flow to the roadside ditch, and it will go to, some of that will go to Simmons, through the shaded area is, and part of that will go back to the pond. So about half will go to Simmons, half will go back the other direction. But that's so much little water coming there. It's just half the backside of those lots. Majority of the water is coming from the Germantown side. Coming down into Shepard Street and flowing down Shepard Street back to Simmons.
And so is any of that going into pipes? Is that water going?
The pipes will be on the north side of Shepard, but we can do some grading on the south side to divert it as far as we can back to the pond. But again, we're bucking grade there, so we're having to do it as far as we can. Kind of work wherever we'll start. If you go past Noisette Road, there's an outfall from Noisette, that development, we're picking it up just past that and bringing it all back to the pond.
So that piping on Shepherd Street, is it gonna break? Some of it's gonna come towards,
So if you know where they're building a new house on Shepard Street, just past
Right.
Noisette,
yeah,
that driveway would be the break point. So
Okay.
everything this side of that driveway will go back to the pond.
okay, and the rest of it will come towards
So
Simmons Avenue, okay.
we're taking about 22 acres of area that's flowing into Simmons, diverting it to the pond. That will be controlled and then sent through the existing pond at Jessen Park and then on to the outfall ditch from there. Any questions on this one?
I want to thank you for what you're doing, but this is, of course, it's long overdue. There's been a lot of people over there have had a lot of complaints, but I see where this could really make a big difference. I want to thank you for your efforts.
I wish we could get it done faster, but unfortunately, things like
Yeah.
this.
Does anybody in the audience have any questions for us while we talk about? Yes, sir.
I do. My name is George Jenkins, and I live at 115 Jessen Street, the corner of Jessen and Simmons. My property has been flooded 7 times since 2009. And all the water that he's talking about is coming out of Shepard Park and out of President Circle. And putting the piping up by Noisette is not going to do anything to relieve our problem at all. Nothing. So what's the solution? What are we going to do?
Well,
I mean,
sorry.
the study that was done back in 2019 states that the pipes are too small to handle that volume of water.
They are too small. That's why
Yes.
we're taking water, see the shaded area up there.
Yep.
All that water is also going towards your property down, check that. All that water not go there, the pond is functioning in place. Taking about 25–30% of area that's flowing to you now.
Well, like I've said before, if this does not solve the problem, I'll give you the chance to fix the problem. If this doesn't, we have a lawsuit coming your way.
Thank you,
To
sir.
Mr. Jenkins' comments about the size of the pipes, that's was part of the problem, I think, also on Waring Street, Mr. Tillman Millhouse lives. What's the possibility of getting bigger pipes?
That's being considered in the Waring Street.
Yeah.
We upgraded the pipe on Peter Street. That's in place and functioning. We're doing a similar project on Waring Street, upgrading all those pipes all the way down to near Carolina Avenue. But I'd like to get these in place, get those project in place. If there's still a problem, we can look at upgrading pipes along Shepard and Waring, but I'm pretty confident this is gonna improve the issue greatly.
Robert's got some.
I do. My name's Robert Ford. I live at 633 Central Avenue. I'm on the corner of Simmons and Central. And I know, Russ, thank you for working on this. And I've spoken with the mayor. They've actually been in my property. A lot of water issues there. Doing some research on my own, I kind of stick out on a little peninsula. Germantown Road's behind me, comes out to Simmons, loops out around. There's a little wooded lot on the corner. I don't know who owns that wooded lot. Mayor, I believe he says town might own it at one time. And it loops around that, comes back down to Central. I'm the first house coming up Central, going into town without a drainage ditch parallel to Central. So the drainage ditch, the last drainage ditch is Mr. Brandon's house located next door to me, coming out of down Central into town, and then it stops. And then on the same thing on Germantown Road behind me, when you turn off of Simmons on Germantown, on the right-hand side of the road, there's no drainage pipes there. There's no drainage retention ditches there. And then about halfway down Germantown to Parkway, there are ditches. I'm like on a little peninsula with no drainage ditches on the backside of Germantown, no drainage ditches on that little section of Simmons, and no drainage ditches in front of that wooded lot or me. That water, I guess, coming from Parkwood and all the problems that we're talking about, tends to come down to the ditches on Central, fills that up, there's nowhere for it to go. I've had water in I bought that house in 2015 from the Knights, Randolph Knight. Talked to Mr. Crump across the street, who's been there since 1967. He said he never seen the amount of water coming up to that property until around the time Somerville Estates was finished across the street. Now that's, I believe, I don't know if that's the town or the county, but I know the house diagonally across from me is county. And I feel like that's the problem. There's a ditch that goes across the street through a culvert under Central that feeds all those ditches parallel to Central and goes under Central Avenue to a ditch across the street. That's Mr. Hearn's county district, Bill Hearn's county district. We talked to Mr. Hearn, and Mr. Hearn said they don't have easement on that ditch, which kind of baffled me because Mr. Crump that lives next to it told me the county's been out there before to clean it out. Well, why would the county have cleaned it out before if they don't have easement on it? So that's a whole other issue. But Russ, I didn't hear anything in regards to Central. I didn't hear anything in regards to my property. My crawl space since I bought that house in 2015 has flooded 3 times. My air conditioning system's under there. It hits my ductwork. It absorbs in my ductwork. I had to replace that ductwork twice. It fried a 3.5 ton heat pack. I had to replace that. I bought the house. You're not in a flood zone. I didn't buy flood insurance. I paid for that out of my pocket. So I'm hoping that this retention pond will help reduce the volume of water at least coming to me. And, I'm willing to I want to be patient and I want to make sure this project after the pipes are put in and to see how the pond works. But I just want to make note that I will be continuing to come to town council meetings because we got to do something. I bought this as an investment, turned it into a nice, beautiful home, remodeled it. I put a lot of money into it. And I mean, this is affecting the integrity of my foundation. It's affecting my health because that water gets in the crawl space. There's mold, there's mildew. I have respiratory issues. So there's a lot involved in that. And I just hope that some of these projects are gonna remove that. And so I'll just be continuing to come to meetings. I want to wait to see when this pond is finished and the next rain we get after that, how it's done. Just know that I'm paying attention and hopefully all this will help me out a little bit as well.
Thank you, Rob.
That's all. I want to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is issue of the blind spot on Shepard Street at Parkway Drive came up recently and requested to put on the, I think Mr. Bailey, you requested to put this on the agenda for tonight. We looked at this back in March of 2016. Back then, the recommendation was to convert Shepard Street to a one-way in a westerly direction. That would basically alleviate traffic, the need for traffic to come out and on the Shepard and not be able to see around the curve at Parkway Drive. The only other solution would be to acquire right away in front of the house on Parkwood Drive and clear all the vegetation to open up the site triangle. But I had AJ look at this for me again, and he recommended we, instead of convert the entire section, we just convert the section from Parkwood Drive to the west to Simmons Avenue as one way and leave the section between Parkwood and Simmons as a two-way as it is today. So that's staff's recommendation to address this issue is convert the west side of Shepard Avenue from Parkwood as a one-way street. And we did poll people in the area back then, and there was an overwhelming opposition to it. I think we got 13 responses, 11 were opposed to this, 2 were in favor. I don't expect that opinion to change today, but there will be less people affected in this change.
Okay, I think we have a resident here. If they would like to say something. Yeah, you can come up.
Thank you. My name's Gary Blond. I live on Shepard Street at 208 Shepard. I'm the one who brought it up recently. And I agree with you. This is a less favorable solution. If I had to vote, I don't know if I get a vote, but there's a two-part problem here also is that not only is it a blind curve, but is there anything we can also do to slow down the traffic on Parkway? Part of the problem is you have to ease out a little bit till you see. The other problem is Parkwood's really, I mean, you could really name it Richard Petty Way. I mean, there's only one speed limit on the entire length of Parkwood, and that's at the beginning by the fish camp. There's no other speed limit sign on the road. If, you know, we have a combination of this being a blind curve and the speed limits really being a mere suggestion that not enough people really take seriously. So we have a double problem here. Just going one way helps a little bit. But my wife and I, we walk the area all the time. I know George walks the area all the time. Even the sidewalk's great. Love it. Beautiful addition. But sometimes people come around those curves so fast, I'm not sure if they're coming up on those sidewalk or not. I mean, it's just, Parkwood is just an amazing problem with the way people speed down the. So I was hoping for a four-way stop there to do two things: slow the people down on Parkwood so we don't have an issue someday, and to give me access to get out to the road reasonably safe. I realize this is one way to solve it, but I think we have a chance here to solve both problems, not just one. And I will say again, I prefer it not to be one way, and I understand it does solve one of the problems, but it just creates a little more issue for me. But that would be my vote. Thank you.
I think we have
Plus, you
someone
got one in
else.
the back, Russ.
I'm Larry Davis, and I live at 117 Parkwood. And that man is right. We don't even have a speed limit sign on that road. Nothing. What he was saying in that curve, I walk every morning. And I've seen a school bus and a car just about hit right there about a week ago. And when they was digging that pond, a friend of ours was directing traffic. Two little girls in a car blew the horn and went around him and almost ran into the dump truck.
Thank you, Larry.
Any other- Could you address the potential four-way stop there?
Yes, sir. We requested DOT allow us to put a four-way stop there several times in the past, and it never meets warrant. Traffic really hasn't changed that much. I don't expect it would meet warrant today. It wasn't even closed before. But we would have to get their permission to install a four-way stop there. And so far, they've not granted that permission.
Yeah, I agree. We've looked at it a number of times. One of the things he mentioned, what about speed limit signs? Would that help some?
Speed limit signs would help, but it still doesn't meet the manual. It doesn't meet the requirements of
The highway
proper
department.
sight distance. You can slow the traffic down, but it's still not gonna meet the
Because I know we
requirements of
looked
sight
at it a
traffic.
number of times before.
Stop signs is a safety issue.
Good, they're probably taken down within a week.
You mean from DOT?
That's the only thing they'll ever do. They sure don't help us with anything else. I think we ought to send our people out there and put the speed limit signs up. I
I
know we
think-
can't put the stop signs up, but we ought to put the speed limit signs up. 'Cause I've been traveling that road now for about 4 months building a house on the west side of Simmons Avenue, and these people are exactly right. That Parkway's a dangerous road, very dangerous road. And that intersection, I went out there today just to cross that intersection, coming from the west side. And Bessie Simmons lives on that corner. I know her well. And that's her yard. You got to get almost out to the center line to be able to have a good vision around that curve. So I didn't think about a four-way stop sign until that gentleman just came up here, but that's a great idea. But certainly if not that, one way, somebody's going to get killed there. I'm surprised that we hadn't had an accident on that corner, a bad accident. But I really believe that, and we can take this up in a meeting, but Thursday, but I think that we ought to put stop signs. We ought to have our people put stop signs. If the highway department says no, I will talk with Secretary Hall, myself, and let her know what kind of situation we got here on Parkwood. But I didn't realize there wasn't any speed limit signs on Parkwood because I cross Parkwood. I don't drive down it very seldom. But I didn't know that's a long road from Central Avenue to Golf Road. And so I can see why people would be speeding on it. But we definitely need stop speed limit signs on it. And we can look into that four-way stop also to try to get help from somebody above whoever's telling us no. The highway department Department of Transportation just doesn't do much for us in Somerville. I mean, we just fixed a pothole. I got Mark to fix a pothole at the corner of Simmons Avenue and Germantown Road the other day that I've been waiting on the highway department to do for the last 6 months that your car would fall into. And you telling me they'll pull up a stop sign, but they won't even fix a road. And that's pretty sickening.
Another problem that you got, Parkwood slingshots, because it's that curve where it hits Simmons, Shepard. It's just a slingshot around, and that makes it difficult to see also right there where Bessie Simmons lived that you're talking about. When you come on down Parkwood, you hit a curve, and also it affects your visibility. And so when you get right there where Shepard Street is, that's another problem.
Russ, when was the last time that we asked DOT if they could look at putting a four-way
Probably
stop
around
there?
2016 and several times before then.
Well, perhaps our traffic is more such that they would approve it.
So if you're planning on making that a common cushion, it's going around that common. A lot of people walking around that.
Yes, ma'am.
Stop sign, that's-
I got one more thing, there's a playground on that street too.
Yep. Sure is.
25 mile an hour. So,
Maybe we could get the sign up there that indicates speed and see if there's been any change in the traffic.
We'll follow up with DOT. I know their personnel is pretty low right now in Dorchester County, but we will follow up and get them to do that.
Is there, I mean, it's been a long time since I've been out there, but aren't any of these intersection curve areas, is there people's trees or bushes that are blocking that perhaps we can have them trim them, that would help
That's the
any?
problem at this intersection. It's all blocked by vegetation, but the vegetation is not in the right of way. It's on private property. So we would have to enter private property to cut it or acquire that property to cut it.
Would they allow us to do that?
That's Miss Simmons' property.
Yeah, I know her real well, but it's not just the vegetation. Today, her car was in the driveway. And I know her well. I would be glad to go ask her if we could cut the vegetation. And I'm sure she would say yes. She is a very nice lady. And I'll stop by her house tomorrow and ask her. But we can cut the vegetation, but her house is even in the way. I mean, her house is almost in the road.
Exactly.
Before that was a dirt road up until the late 60s. And when they paved it and widened it, it put Bessie's house almost on the road. And with that curb being there. And her car that she drives, a little black car, was in her driveway, well in her driveway. And when I pulled up to that stop sign, I had to get in the road to be able to see around her car. So you can cut all the vegetation you want, and you're still gonna have to get out in the road to be able to see, not quite as far, but you still gotta get in the Parkway to be able to see to get out. So it's, no matter what we do with the vegetation, it's still a dangerous intersection.
What about a mirror?
What?
A mirror, so you can look here and see down the road.
Yeah, well, they help.
Yeah, people have kind of gone away. They used to do that. But they seem to get stolen, broken, hit, and
Russ,
become a maintenance issue.
Parkwood is a state road.
Yes, sir.
Is it the only state road in that intersection, or?
Shepard is a town road, Parkwood is a state road.
So if we took responsibility for Parkwood, we can put up a four-way stop sign. Wouldn't have to ask permission from anybody.
That's right.
We could, and because it's a state road, the speed limit is what on Parkwood?
30 miles per hour.
And it can't go below, we can't reduce it.
We could request it be, there's been times where they could put it down 25 in the residential areas. This may be approved for 25.
Well, I just happen to believe we could do better for these people than we're doing. I think we need to look into it. I think this young man over here has got some good ideas. And he's a traffic engineer. I think we need to give it, the good old college try and see what we can do. Because there is a children's playground there too. So, and it's something to consider also.
I'd say we put up the four-way stop sign and see what happens.
Is that a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second.
I'm not on the committee, but.
Oh, hold on.
I'll second, third it, or vote for it, whatever you need me to do.
You're actually on the committee, the person that made the motion.
You want to move it on to council.
Okay, so who
On
else
Thursday
is
night.
on this committee?
Oh,
Oh, yeah, Terry. Okay, okay, we got a first and a second.
Terry, you are on this page.
You are on the committee. Has your name right there.
So who's on the committee?
Ms. McIntosh, you are.
It says Walter and Terry and Kimma right here.
We got a motion in a second.
Oh, it's not right?
And I'm
Why don't we just do it?
That's right.
All in favor,
I'm
say
happy to do
aye.
it.
Aye. Okay, so we're gonna take our chances.
All right. Item is a issue that came up recently, discussion of a traffic signal at the intersection of White Gables Drive and Central Avenue at that intersection. Study was recently done by the developer putting in the 60 townhomes in the front. And I'm gonna defer to AJ on this one. It's more traffic heavily related. But I would just tell you that it was borderline, yes or no. Could have gone either way, but I'll let AJ explain better than I could.
So basically, they did a signal warrant study. They did the counts in December of 2020, and basically the signal warrant was, if you use the volumes, the existing volumes, the warrant was short of the criteria that would warrant a signal, but adjusting for a COVID factor and not using, it gets a little complicated. There's a right turn reduction factor that DOT it likes to use. So using a COVID adjustment factor from December of 2020, which added about 20% to the volumes back in December, and without the right turn reduction factor, it would meet the criteria for a signal. But if you use the 25% reduction factor that DOT wanted to see in the study, it fell just short of the criteria that would warrant a signal.
Just for curiosity, what's the COVID factor in traffic?
So in December, so what happened was, obviously when COVID hit, traffic volumes dropped. And so you had to have a factor in to kind of, build in what normal traffic would be while you're still doing these studies as time was going on. So at that time, it was 1.19 in the PM peak hour, multiplied by what was existing in December of 2020. That makes sense. So basically,
I understand what you're saying.
okay. So basically, and right now, if we were to do another study, we wouldn't get a COVID factor in there. So it's, debatable of whether we are at those volumes pre-COVID that the factor was built in to sort of match, if that makes sense to you.
This is not connected, nothing.
You can do something about Simmons and Shepard.
Is there any other questions about study out here?
Well, obviously, I've lived on White Gables Drive for about 12, 13 years. It's a dangerous intersection. I'm sure it's only gotten worse since I lived there. Wasn't aware of the COVID factor and all the other machinations. I just thought they went out there and counted cars.
Normally that's how it's done, but at the time, the study was done December 2020. There's some adjustments that had to have been made based on, where we were at with traffic and people working from home, schools.
So if we requested a study now, you don't have any idea whether it would improve our chances or worsen our chances?
If I had to guess, I don't think it would improve really, because
the factor was greater than the actual increase.
That's what I would think.
Would you recommend that we wait until that development starts?
That would be the better option. At least give us some more volume out there. And yeah,
Any other comments?
Works for me.
All right, thank you.
Last item. Those traffic solutions for North Little Maine. I didn't know what to call this. 'Cause it's basically a parking area in front of Groucho's Deli, between Luke Street and First Street. It was suggested last week to me that we could look at possibly converting this to a one-way street going south from the driveway off Main Street down towards Luke Street. Looking at it further, there's the driveway serves the bank just to the north and with the white roof as an exit, and serves the driveway to the rear of the Groucho's Deli restaurant, and also the parking area in front of Groucho's Deli and the law firm there. So converting it to one way is not, I don't think it's a good idea, not a feasible idea. But the street is very narrow. It's only, the drive aisle is only about 20 feet wide between the sidewalk and the back of the parking area. So it was suggested that we convert that parking to angled parking instead of head-in parking. Angled parking, as you if you go south, so be pointing south towards Main Street. So it would encourage people to come in off the Main Street driveway and go south and angle park in front of Main Street. Other issue we've got there is when larger pickup trucks will back into a spot, they sometimes, I've seen the rear bumpers hanging over into the travel lane on Main Street. So because the parking bumpers right up against the back of curb, and prize has not been side swipes there. But that's a recommendation to resurface. I'd like to resurface the road. Is pretty in poor condition. At the same time, at the resurface, that we would convert that parking to one way. We get about 28 to 30 spots in there if we lined it correctly.
Was this brought up by the business owners there?
It was brought up by someone in the law firm there. Commissioner Thurman. Commissioner Robbins brought it up.
Russ, you said you'd get 20 to 30 parking spaces with this idea you've got. How many parking spaces are there now?
I don't know how many, about 30. It wouldn't change much. It'd be about the same what's there. It's really not, the parking bumpers are too close together. Those lines are all gone, so it's really kind of a free for all there now.
Russ, if you run it by the people at the bank and Groucho's,
I will. Robbie has agreed to help reach out to those folks too and get their thoughts on it.
So your recommendations are to have angled parking, resurface, and make it one way?
No, not to make it
Not
one
to
way.
make it
Keep
one-
it two way, but it would encourage traffic to go that direction to park.
Gotcha.
But it will still allow a northerly travel.
I mean, I think this is a good idea, but I think we need to get input from the merchants that are, or at least advise merchants what we're planning on to get input from them. So
And we're gonna do that. I just wanted to introduce it to you, you all, and get
good idea.
it on your radar.
All right.
Russ, I worked over there for about 6 months remodeling Groucho's before it was Groucho's, and remodeling the other building where Bottles and Brushes were for Jack Parks. And almost got killed in that parking lot. And I don't think we ought to name that thing Little Main Street. It ought to be a parking lot, because that's what it is. And what you're proposing coming in right as soon as you go into that traffic light and you veer off into that parking lot where that curb cut is right there. That's a dangerous way to enter that parking lot, because you leave in that traffic light, and as soon as you leave that traffic light, people veer off into that parking lot, and they're taking off from the light kind of fast, and they zoom into that parking lot. And the way they parking there now, they're parking there on both sides. They're parking there on facing Main Street. They're parking there any kind of way, like you say. There's no lines, there's no nothing, and people just could pull in that park. And maybe with some proper lining and all, like you say, it'll be better.
Right.
But with that curb being so close to the intersection and people getting out of their cars and walking in that parking lot, I'm scared somebody's gonna get run over coming in that curb. If we could move that curb down some, that curb cut down some towards the bank.
I think we could have some distance between the curb cut and the first parking space to give a buffer.
Yeah.
So I think that would address the issue
Yeah,
you're bringing
I
up.
think that would help a lot. Because I think what we got right there now, I like the idea, but the angle parking, I mean, because that'll make it a heck of a lot safer when people are backing out of the parking lot and going down, going on out down on the Luke Street side. That'll sure make it a lot safer. And I think the merchants will really like that too, because it is dangerous the way it is right now.
I agree. And that was kind of why it was brought up. It
Yeah.
doesn't function very well right now.
Yeah.
All right, we will poll some merchants there and get some opinions and bring it back.
Question, is there room, or it might be the bank's property, but the cars that are parked across from the bank right now, is it possible just that area to make parking on both sides angled? Because then, you know how the bank has their paved parking?
You wouldn't, there's not enough room to have
You
both
don't think
sides.
so?
Just unless you do parallel, then I still don't know if it'd be enough room. But it's only 20 feet of lanes, two-way direction, so you wouldn't have enough room for both sides there. Because what you see where the dark pavement is in front of the bank, there's a sidewalk between their
I see,
pavement and
yeah.
the drive aisle. So it's hard to see on that picture though.
Okay,
Any more questions?
anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. We have a first,
Second.
second, all in favor of adjournment? Aye.
I'm done.
Oh, it was on the committee.
All right, Dan, we're ready for you. Tell us how much money we got.
Good evening. I have the August 2021 financial report for your review. Taking a quick look at our revenue. You'll see for the month of August, we received $15,043.83 in property taxes, bringing our year-to-date total to $396,111.19. And that's a little low. We're still waiting on some revenue to come in from the counties, so we expect that to catch up. For licenses, permits, and fees, you'll see we took in $447,744.83 in the month of August, bringing our year-to-date total to $2,243,487.69. Courts, fines, and fees for the month of August came in at $27,348.13, bringing our year-to-date to $64,672.85. For miscellaneous revenues, we received $79,869.45 in the month of August to bring our total to for the year $209,495.83, giving us a grand total for August of $570,006.24 and bringing our year to date up to $3,386,491.49. For our expenditures for the month of August, came in at $2,567,290.03, bringing our year to date to $7,420,886.18. We skip ahead. This is the breakdown of detail on the revenues that were received. Skip ahead to page 4. We can take a look at impact fees. For the month of August, received in residential impact fees $5,596.05, bringing our year-to-date total to $15,906.10. Commercial impact fees, we received $11,648.28 in August, bringing our total $20,911.08 for the first 2 months. Taking a look at hospitality tax, month of August, we received $407,896.36. Bring our year-to-date up to $916,345.95. Lastly, taking a look at stormwater. Once again, we did not book any revenue. We're waiting on that to come in from the counties. So those numbers are obviously lower than they will work out to be. $7,132.47 to date. But as I said, once the revenue comes in, we'll be caught up there. Anybody have any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Next is the update on the American Rescue Plan.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I just wanted to walk you through a couple of slides about the American Rescue Plan Act. You may already be familiar with the number, but we as a metro city got our allocation directly from the feds as opposed to having to have it go through the state. Our total allocation, $7,796,973. It's going to be distributed basically in 2 distributions. The first, we have requested, the distribution has been approved but has not been allocated yet, so we are still waiting for those funds to arrive. The guidance provided by Treasury in their interim final rule and frequently asked questions give the town broad latitude to spend in some identified categories. The first is response to public health emergency and the negative economic impacts of COVID-19. The second is provision of government services to the extent that COVID-19 caused reduction in revenue in previous years. The third is responding to workers performing essential work by providing premium pay. The fourth is to make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. And there's a fifth category that consists of other generally eligible uses that are primarily related to providing certain services for low-income residents. Federal government in its guidance will allow municipalities to give grants to nonprofit organizations or other units of government for allowable expenditures under this act, but does not require the municipality to do so. And as indicated, funds must be obligated by the last day of 2024 and must be fully spent by the end of 2026. So internally, what we did, we asked our department heads to submit proposals for spending these American Rescue Plan Act funds based on those identified categories. Specifically with regard to revenue reduction, there is a formula that Treasury has provided. The Municipal Association has given us a spreadsheet to plug in our numbers, and that will give us an actual figure for the year that ended in 2020. We'll do this again at the end of 21, 22, and 23. There's no minimum spending requirement in any category, and there's no requirement to spend in every category. Each municipality makes the decisions that are best for it based on their needs. What we've provided for you is a recommendation for your consideration in determining how to spend the funds. And as you can see, there's a total funding request, internal and external, of just over $39 million. So there's quite a difference between what's been requested and what we have to allocate.
It seems to me like this is kind of premature at this point. We have till 2024 to spend it. And right now, we don't know what our budget situation is because we don't have the audit in. So I would hesitate to start throwing this money around until we find out what we need to be doing as far as the budget.
Yeah, this is being presented strictly as information. There's no action being requested of council based on what you've seen so far.
Thank you.
And Michael, I guess just as a comment, this is coming in 2 parts.
That's correct.
The only part I'm sure of, I think I'm sure of, is the part that we just got or getting ready to get.
Right.
And so I think we would be prudent as we look at this, council staff, all of us, to, first use funds to replenish our own funds that we have spent during the COVID period. And second, to look at areas that benefit the community as a whole, projects that fall in that may help us reduce our cost in other areas from the budget. And third, to do things that may do that in the future. I know I can't count the number of items that were here. I mean, it's a very long list and very well done. But as we go into the other areas of how do we help specific needs, it would seem prudent to me to do that or consider that out of the second batch of funds that we get next year, assuming that we get them, and not do that this year. Just my thoughts on it.
Absolutely. The great part, if you will, about this allocation of funding is that we have until the end of 2024 to essentially encumber or obligate the funds. And we've got 2 years beyond that to finish spending them. So there is absolutely no need to rush out and immediately jump into a series of activities. Again, from our perspective, we wanted to give you this information, sort of start that conversation, and obviously get tremendous input and direction from you all as we start to move forward. But you're right, there's absolutely no mad rush to start spending those dollars immediately.
On the first chart that you showed, you mentioned allocations of possible allocation of this money can be used for low and moderate income
Yes, sir.
needs in a community. Could you be more specific on that?
There are a number of examples that the interim final rule provides, but they typically relate to services that are designed for low and moderate income families. And it could include education related services. It could include home repairs, weatherization, those types of things. But they're essentially funds that are being directed to these communities to meet the needs that perhaps were exposed by the experience of the COVID-19 vaccine. Could include healthcare, could include having additional staff who help these families secure the government benefits that are available to them. It could be things like child tax credit or SNAP benefits, things of that nature.
Well, and when I read it, it mentioned home repair, and I guess that's what you referred to when you said weatherization.
That's one of those things. Yes, sir.
Making their homes more comfortable and more livable. Now, I know we've got a long period of time to decide how we're going to use this money, but I think there are some pockets of poverty that we need to consider when we are looking at this money. Now, the amount of allocation that we allot to these particular areas, I don't know what that would be.
Right.
But I know in the past, we've used some COG money to help people do some of the things just mentioned in the American Rescue Plan, like weatherization, improving the roofs on their homes and that sort of thing, and making the house more livable, better heating systems and all that kind of things. So these are the things that make people a little bit more comfortable in their home. That also makes the house more valuable.
Right.
And so when the tax man comes around the following year, the taxes increases on these houses. So it's not that these people are getting a freebie, because their taxes are probably going to go up once the house is improved.
Right.
So it's a win-win situation for everybody.
Absolutely. Those are allowable expenditures under these funds. And that'll be something
Another
that
question too,
council can debate.
the first hit that we're going to get is the 7 million plus.
It's half of that, so approximately 3.9 million. And then the
Sorry?
second, it's half of that total amount of 7.796. So it'll be about 3.9 million that we draw down probably this week or next is when we'll actually receive those funds. The second distribution will happen in May of next year, and that's when we'll get the other half.
So how does that relate to the total funding request, internal and external, of 39 million?
Obviously, it's going to require decisions at the council level to allocate those 7,796,000. What we asked our department heads to do, and what we got some external requests from eligible entities for, added up to 39 million. Obviously, there's no way to fund that with less than $8 million. So it's going to require council direction to give us, instruction on how they'd like to see those funds allocated.
And this is allocated out over like a 4-year period or something like that.
Yeah, it can be allocated, it has to be obligated by the end of 24, which means you have to have a contract in place to
And
spend
then
the
it has to
dollars.
be spent by
Spent by the end of
2026
26,
or
yes,
whatever.
sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next is the lease purchase financing authorization and schedule.
In your 2022, 21-22 budget, there were several items that were approved to be lease purchased. On the left-hand side of your screen, you've got the list that was approved in that budget. You can't really see the highlighted items there, but there are 4 items that we would like to take out of the capital lease purchase and fund those with another source, in particular hospitality tax. And that is the John Deere Gator, the Sand Pro, the zero turn mower, and the E911 upgrades. And we also would like your permission to go ahead and start soliciting banks to go after this lease purchase, which would then come back to you for approval. You've got some department heads out here who are quite anxious to go ahead and get this equipment ordered. So we want to go ahead and do the lease purchase, start soliciting banks to get the lease purchase proposals. And then the department heads will bring these back to you, these items back to you for approval on one-on-one.
Well, I'll make a motion that we move forward as you have suggested with taking funds out of capital lease purchase into purchase and allow department heads to bring back the bids. Second.
Second.
Second. Okay, motion on the floor and second, and any discussion?
Not sure I understand the motion. Is the motion just to allow us to go forward pursuing the lease purchases up for the items on the right?
Yes, sir. We want to do a request for proposals to banks, and they can give us a proposal on the lease purchase options. We will actually bring that back to you with the best interest rate. So you all will have to approve the overall lease purchase. But in the meantime, the department heads will be coming to you with individual requests to purchase these items. And then you will approve those individually, but these will be paid for with lease purchase proceeds.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes carry.
Discussion of reappropriation of local H-tax funds.
Okay, for the hospitality tax, I believe there were a couple of items that were inadvertently left out of the hospitality tax budget. It looks like they were approved during discussion at your budget retreat, but they were just inadvertently left out. And if you look at the top line under revenue, actually it's the third line, you had excess revenues in the amount of $105,000 that were not appropriated. So you have that $105,000 available. And we also talked about the possibility of reappropriating the wayfinding signage funds, which were budgeted at $200,000. So that will give you $305,000. And what we are proposing, the 2 items that we believe were inadvertently left out was the equipment for the new police officers that were funded with hospitality tax. So we'd like to appropriate funds for that, and also the lease purchase payment, or excuse me, the lease payment for the camera systems for downtown. And then the items that we just talked about removing from the capital lease purchase, we could add those back in, which is the John Deere Gator, the Sand Pro, the zero turn mower, and the E911 upgrades. And then that would actually leave us about a little over $54,000 for the wayfinding signage. And Madeline and I have had some discussion about that. And I think the intent was to always do that in sort of a phased approach. So that would enable us to have $54,000 to at least start the process and do a few pilot program signage. And obviously, if we want to continue that, we can budget some more funds next year.
Well, first of all, thanks for the catch. Because we did vote to do that with the equipment for the officers. Can we do this in finance committee on a single vote? And if so, do we then need, and is there a plan to start a process of amending the budget?
Well, the hospitality tax budget is not required to be done by ordinance. We have traditionally brought that to you to be approved with our regular general fund budget, but it's not required to be done by ordinance.
Good.
Can I ask you a question, Lisa?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The reappropriate wayfinding funds, 200,000. And it's mentioned again, wayfinding signs fee is 154,768. What do you mean by reappropriate wayfinding funds?
So in this year's budget, you had $200,000 that was appropriated, that was budgeted for you all to spend on wayfinding signage. I'm asking to reduce that to 54,000 so that we have funds to pay for these other items.
So we're not going to pursue the wayfinding program like we planned to, as far as making something attractive to tourists and that sort of thing, to let them know about the different parts of the town and how it plays into the history of the town.
We're still going to do that. We're just going to do it in a phased approach rather than all at
So
once.
the 54,000 that you intend to spend, that's just the first portion of it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I would move we approve the proposed reappropriation of local HAP funds.
Second.
Okay, motion on the floor that we spend $305,167 on these expenditures that Ms. Lisa's got on the board. A motion made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. Vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Motion carried.
Consideration of funding of the Dream 2021 Somerville Skates Program.
Mayor, I'd make a motion that we make the $125,000 available to Dream for the Somerville skates for this year.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made and seconded that we fund the Dream with Somerville skates for $125,000. Any discussion?
May I just add, Mayor, that 125 will come out of hospitality tax fund balance?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I believe it showed that we had about 2.4 million and obviously in fund balance for hat tax, and that this would take 125 out. But of course, the idea is that around 50% of that would come back and as 90% of the gate receipts.
I hope 100. But I expect 50.
I'll take 100, but 2 years in a row, we've gotten about 50% back.
Correct.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes carried.
Authorization to surplus 69 mobile radios from the police department that are no longer serviceable.
I'll make a motion. We approve that.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, I'm just curious as how old those are, ones we've got now.
Chief?
They range, but we don't have, we're not even that technology anymore. So they range from being 70 years old to older. We became encrypted. We upgraded our technology,
And so they're no longer.
Okay, is there any market for them to sell
There
to?
is, so there's some smaller counties, municipalities around the country. So we're gonna seek those out, and see if we can get them sold.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Second.
I'm not sure.
We got a motion and a second?
I made a motion.
Yes, we got a second? Got a second. Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor signify by raising right hand. Vote yes.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed likewise. Ayes carried.
Authorization to issue a purchase order to Wolf and Son Electric Incorporated in the amount of $86,962 for the Doty Park Lighting Project. This project was publicly advertised and sealed bids were collected. The funds are to come from the Community Development Block Grant, and the request is from the Parks and Recreation Department.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. Vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes carried.
Authorization to issue a purchase order to Motorola Solutions in the amount of $27,435.60 for 5 APX portable handheld radios with accessories. This is a non-capital expenditure for the 5 newly funded hospitality officers in the 2021-2022 local hospitality and accommodations tax budget. The request is from the police department.
I'll make a motion that we approve that.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. Vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes carried.
Authorization to issue a purchase order to CEMS Engineering to prepare repair drawings for the parking garage in the amount of $31,642.19. Funds coming from Building and Grounds, and the request is from Public Works.
I'll make a motion that we approve that.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. We spend $31,642.19 for the study on the parking garage. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
I have a couple of questions, for Russ. The additional hourly services that are listed under the fees. Do you anticipate that would be something that would increase this?
No, sir. Just about
amount?
every engineering contract we have lists their hourly services to see what the breakdown is, but I feel pretty confident we won't exceed this number.
Okay, and the other question I had was that on that same top of page 4, where it talks about the scope of what they're doing, no destructive investigation or non-destructive testing, that is ultrasonic sounding or radar, will be performed. It would appear to me, just as a layman, that that would be something you'd need to do, not the destructive investigation, but the ultrasonic sounding and radar, so you can see what's wrong inside of the structure instead of just eyeballing it from the outside. And I just wondering why that wasn't included.
Yeah, I'm not a structural engineer, but the engineer that I've talked to, they've done a good many of these types of repairs and analysis. They feel comfortable they can do it with their techniques. If you go out there over the stairwells, there's horizontal members over the stairwells where the connection is, and on the inside of the wall, there's some cracking and spalling. It's not an imminent threat of failing, but it's something we need to address. And I've observed over the past year or so, it's getting worse. So it's something we need to address.
Okay. Is it limited to that area that you've talked about, the deterioration?
Both stairwells have the same area, same issue on the same areas going up each floor. There's also some spalling on the front wall opposite where the birds are painted. There's some spalling up there they're gonna look at too.
All right. A couple of years ago, I had a structural engineer that I was talking to out in the parking lot, and he pointed out some wet spots on the top of this gray wall here on this building, and said there's water. Yeah, said there was water intrusion making those things. That I noticed coming in. I looked up there, and it's cracking up there too, the exterior of the concrete. So
We'll get that addressed too.
Thank you.
This is not gonna harm the birds, is it? I'm checking on that for Mr. Bailey.
On the birds.
Okay.
I was worried about that bird. Yeah.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. Vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes carried.
Authorization to issue a purchase order to Design Build Construction LLC and $248,881 and enter a contract to create final design and construction documents for Fire Station 6. The request is from the fire department.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we authorize this purchase.
A second.
Okay, motion made and seconded that we spend this money with design bill.
Are these budgeted funds or do they come from municipal impact?
From fire impact.
Okay, any more discussion?
And this is just for the design documents, is that correct? Not the actual construction?
Is Chief here?
Okay. And is there any chance of getting some of the money for construction out of the American Rescue money?
There's potentially, we have to first determine how much of a loss in revenue we have. And any loss of revenue that we can identify, we can then turn around and use that money for things that perhaps we would have funded
Okay.
if we had that money.
Okay, thank you.
So.
Good, good, thank
Thank
you.
you, bud.
Well done, Chief.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Okay, Ms. Beth.
Authorization to issue a purchase order to Motorola Solutions in the amount of $38,757.81 for the purchase of 6 portable radios for the fire department, funds to come from budgeted capital funds.
Make a motion to approve that.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made and second. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Vote aye.
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 Opposed likewise. Ayes carried. Is that anything? Go ahead. Yeah, anybody got anything they want to bring up about the upcoming council meeting on Thursday night?
In that case, I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
The only one that puts their-